The streets of Westminster erupted into chaos today as Prime Minister Keir Starmer faced a ferocious public backlash that has rocked the Labour government to its core. The air was thick with rage, the kind that boils over when trust in those meant to protect has been shattered. Protesters, their faces contorted with anger, descended on the scene, their voices unified in a chilling, relentless chant of predator that cut through the clamour like a blade. This wasn't just a demonstration, it was a public reckoning, a raw outpouring of fury over the government's perceived failures on the grooming gang scandal, and Starmer, the man at the helm, was the lightning rod for it all. The viral footage of this confrontation, already flooding social media, is a political grenade, and its shockwaves are set to detonate across the UK's fractured political landscape. The protest kicked off with placards demanding justice for victims of grooming gangs, those horrific networks that preyed on vulnerable girls in towns like Rotherham, Rochdale, and Telford, leaving a trail of devastation that still haunts communities. But what began as a call for accountability exploded into something far uglier when Starmer appeared. The crowd surged, barriers strained, and fingers jabbed accusingly as voices roared, dredging up his tenure as Director of Public Prosecutions from 2008 to 2013. They screamed that he'd let predators slip through the cracks, that political correctness and institutional cowardice under his watch allowed abusers to operate unchecked. The word predator wasn't just a chant, it was a weapon, sharp and loaded, meant to wound. And it did. Starmer's security team scrambled, forming a human shield, but the Prime Minister, in a move that was either brave or reckless, refused to be hustled away. He stood his ground, trying to speak over the cacophony, his words swallowed by the crowd's unrelenting fury. This moment is a political disaster for Starmer, a man who's tried to brand himself as a no-nonsense leader, tough on crime and committed to protecting the vulnerable. But today, he was painted as the villain in a narrative that's been festering for years. The grooming gang scandals aren't just a policy issue. They are a wound on the national conscience, a symbol of systemic betrayal where authorities, paralyzed by fears of being labelled racist, failed to act while young girls suffered unimaginable horrors. Starmer's critics, from Tory firebrands to Reform UK agitators, have pounced, hammering him with accusations that his time at the CPS was marked by inaction, that cases were mishandled, and that he bears personal responsibility for the failures. Whether these claims hold water or are just political mudslinging, the optics are brutal. That viral clip of Starmer, flanked by security, drowned out by chants of predator, will haunt Labour's campaign trail for months. Starmer tried to fight back, raising his voice to insist his government is laser-focused on justice. He promised more police resources, swifter prosecutions, and ironclad protections for victims who dare to speak out. But the crowd wasn't having it. Every pledge was met with jeers, every assurance drowned in a sea of skepticism. One woman, her voice cracking with emotion, screamed that Starmer cared more about his image than the victim's pain. Her words, captured by a forest of smartphones, ricocheted across social media within minutes, fueling a firestorm of debate. Some rushed to Starmer's defense, arguing he's inherited a broken system and is trying to fix it. Others branded him a hypocrite, pointing to his CPS record as proof he's complicit in the very failures he now claims to fight. The word predator became more than a chant. It became a symbol of a deeper rut, a public conviction that the establishment, with Starmer as its face, has betrayed the most vulnerable. This wasn't a spontaneous outburst. The anger has been simmering, stoked by recent court cases that have ripped open old wounds. Survivors have stepped forward, their stories of neglect and dismissal reigniting public outrage. Activist groups have been relentless, demanding tougher laws, transparent investigations, and independent oversight to ensure such failures never happen again. Starmer's decision to wade into this public event was a gamble, and it backfired spectacularly. The predator chant isn't just a protest slogan, it's a moral indictment, implying not just failure but complicity. It's a label that sticks, and no amount of spin from Labour's communications team can easily wash it away. The fallout was immediate. Social media platforms like X, Facebook, and TikTok exploded with clips of the confrontation, racking up millions of views in hours. Hashtags tied to the protest trended nationwide, with comment sections becoming battlegrounds. Some called the protesters heroes for holding power to account. Others condemned their tactics, arguing the predator label was unfair and inflammatory. Political commentators waded in, dissecting what this means for Labour's credibility. For survivors and their families, this isn't just politics, it's personal. It's about justice delayed, pain ignored, and a system that too often looked the other way. For the public, it's about whether leaders like Starmer can be trusted to protect the defenseless. At a hastily arranged press conference afterward, Starmer tried to regain control. He condemned grooming and exploitation in the strongest terms, vowing zero tolerance and calling for unity. But the questions kept coming, sharp and unforgiving, zeroing in on his CPS days. Why were certain cases dropped? Why did it take so long to act? Starmer's frustration was palpable, his insistence that the focus should be on today's actions rather than yesterday's failures doing little to quell the storm. The past, it seems, is a shadow he can't outrun. This moment could define Starmer's leadership. Some will argue his decision to face the crowd, to not flee, showed grit. Others will see it as a miscalculation, proof is out of touch with the public's raw anger. Either way, the predator Chants have handed his opponents a powerful weapon, one they'll wield mercilessly in the political arena. The stakes are colossal. Trust in Labour, already fragile, hangs in the balance. This isn't just a bad news cycle, it's a crisis that could leave a permanent scar on Starmer's tenure. The echoes of those chants will linger, a stark reminder that when the public's trust is broken, no promise, no speech, no policy can easily mend it. https Economic Times India Times.com News International UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer launches historic inquiry into grooming gangs as survivors break silence article show CMS. https://www.independent.co.uk/news/following/grooming-gang-inquiry-keir-starmer-rochdale-b2770174.html https://news.sky.com/story/grooming-gangs-scandal- Timeline What happened, what inquiries there were and how Starmer was involved 13285021